Imagine if you could easily find solutions to make your region or city smarter, greener, better connected, more social, and closer to citizens. The Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform can help you access knowledge about the latest policy trends, discover expert-validated good practices from all over Europe, find solutions in our peer review, get tailored support from our expert team. We can connect you with the right people and organizations. Together, we will find ways to solve your region's or city's challenges. Start your policy learning journey today.
Good afternoon. It's my pleasure to welcome everyone to the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform webinar series on cultural routes and itineraries. This is our first webinar in the series of 3, and today we are focusing on the digitalization of heritage. My name is Astrid Severin, and I'm a thematic expert for environment and resource efficiency at the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. I would also like to welcome my expert colleagues, Magda Michaliková, hello, who is also a thematic expert for environment and resource efficiency, and my colleague Lotte van Meyl from our communications team. Hello, Lotte, to you. Before we are starting, just some little housekeeping rules. We are recording this webinar, and the recordings are all available online later. And there you will also find all the links and presentations that we are presenting here in the webinar. Then we have also received some questions from you beforehand, but please don't be shy and share also your questions that you may have and that come up during the presentations, and write them in the chat so that we can have a really good discussion with you. In the chat, you will also find useful information and links, so make sure that you're checking that out. And finally, we would ask you to please be so kind and give us some feedback at the end of the webinar. How did you like it? What can we improve? We are really keen on understanding that. So before introducing our really distinguished panel to you, we have prepared 2 polls to get to know you a little bit better as well. So Lotte, could you please start our polls? So with the first poll, we would like to understand what kind of organization you are representing. If you're coming from a local, regional, national authority, a museum or a heritage site, an NGO or a fund, or anything, any other kind of organization. So please let us know that. Very good. So we can see already that you are very many people from local, regional, and national authorities. That is really excellent. Also some museums and heritage sites, NGOs and funds, and quite a lot of people, actually a quarter, which coming from different types of organizations. So maybe you can share with us where you're coming from and what kind of organizations you're coming from, since we have at least a quarter here, which is not represented, and let us know in the chat what you're doing. And our second question is actually geared to asking you, why are you here at this webinar and why you're attending it? So is it because you're interested, and you have multiple choice, so you can take everything if you want, because you're interested in the digitalization of museums and heritage sites, or the digitalization of routes and itineraries, to create better digital tourism offers, identify new applications and technologies, or maybe just simply to find new ways of attracting visitors. So I think we have a very good offer for you here in this webinar today, because we have all of these things represented and you're interested in everything. So that's excellent. So thank you very much. And as I said, please don't be shy, post your questions or where you're coming from and your interest in organizations in the chat, so we can already start a very good dialogue with you. So thank you very much with these polls. And this gives us now the occasion to introduce our panel and our panelists which are here. So Magda, please be so kind and share the slides. So today in our Digitalization of Heritage webinar, we are having the pleasure to have a really good expert panel here. We are starting with the keynote presentation from Manos Vougioukas. So hello, Manos, to you from the European Cultural Tourism Network. He will speak to us about the digital preservation of cultural heritage. And then we have the chance to listen to 3 presentations of policy changes and good practices. We will kick off with Catherine Leonard from the National Trust in the UK. Hello, Catherine, to you. You will speak about the digitization of historic collections. Then we have the pleasure of having Agathoniki Tsilipakou from the Museum of Byzantine Culture in Thessaloniki. So I hope I got this right this time, Nikki. And we then have also a presentation on the cycling route 1629 from Dennis Decker from Sertogenbosch. So very warm welcome to you as well. So then we have a good little panel discussion and hopefully also a very good discussion with all of you. So before we starting with our presentations, just some short words about Interreg Europe. And for those who don't know the program yet so well, this is about sharing solutions for better regional policy with a really one big priority, which is to build capacity. This is the important point about Interreg Europe and all the regions that are participating, that are coming from 29 countries. And we have quite an interesting budget here of 379 million euros, which is dedicated to capacity building. So we are looking at the following 6 areas. The main focus is on smart and green. That is a concentration here of 80% of the budget on these subjects and also the social subject. And then we have connected citizens and governance, which are also important issues which can be covered by the Interreg Europe program. So, digitalization of heritage, some facts and figures. Cultural tourism represents up to 40% of all tourism in Europe, so it's quite a lot. And more than 8 million people are employed by the cultural and creative industries. More than 1.2 million firms, and most of them very small companies are working in this area. And the European Commission has published a recommendation on a common European data space for cultural heritage to accelerate the digitization of cultural heritage assets. So this is something which is coming forward more and more. So the Commission encourages actually the member states that by 2030, monuments and sites that are in risk of degradation or where a lot of people are visiting, that these are digitized. So a lot of work coming up also in the future to make sure that this heritage is preserved. So you can also find some interesting materials from the Interreg Europe Policy Learning Platform. We are having already published some policy briefs, which you can browse through on digital solutions for cultural heritage, also on sustainable tourism and how to counteract over-tourism. You can read our stories. For example, the North Downs Way Pilgrim Trail has been digitalized, so it's a very interesting approach. Or you can watch our webinar recording on cultural heritage in mountain regions. And if you don't want to read and watch on your computer, you can also come and join us in events. We have the webinar series is just continuing in October. Next week, we will speak about reviving cultural roots. And at the beginning of November, we are looking into water-linked heritage and how policy change has been inspired in this area. And then we have 2 thematic workshops on site with real people where we can exchange and meet and make new partnerships. We're meeting in Cannes-sur-Mer in France next week on cultural and natural heritage in coastal areas. And finally, also in November in Espoo in Finland on digital innovation hubs. So this is the information from us. Thank you very much for listening to this introduction. And now it is my pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker again. So Manos, the word is yours. Please share with us your thoughts. You might be muted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Can you hear me okay? You can see the screen? Yes, fine. Great. Well, the topic that I was asked to address is the digital preservation of cultural heritage. A few words about us, where we're coming from. We are the European Cultural Tourism Network, Ectn, which is the only pan-European network of destinations, regional local authorities, tourism boards and associations, universities and research institutes. We bring together the cultural and tourism sectors to cooperate for sustainable cultural tourism development and promotion in Europe. The network was formed in Brussels in May 2009 as a merge of two previous networks. Currently, we have 39 members in 21 countries, including 6 non-EU countries. Everything we do is governed by our Charter for Sustainable Cultural Tourism, which was first published in 2014. Since then, we have 3 updates. There will be another update next year. 30 priority themes identified, including intangible heritage, heritage interpretation, cultural roots that we're talking about today, cultural and creative industries, creative tourism, and digitalization, the theme of this webinar, including virtual reality and augmented reality methods for sustainable cultural tourism development. Based on this charter, we were able to set up 3 Interreg Europe projects: Krista, which we'll hear later from Mrs. Chiripaco, Culturing, which was exclusively on cultural roots, and Cultcreate, which was on the role of cultural and creative industries in cultural creative tourism development. Starting with the virtual and augmented reality techniques, we believe that this new technology, or fairly new technology, actually provides a very good basis for the visitor before the visit. It doesn't actually replace the visit. It creates more interest for the real visit, more so than a brochure or a traditional means of marketing promotion materials that used to be available in the past. The sense of being in a virtual environment therefore increases the enjoyment and the tourism experience and has a positive effect on tourist activities and behaviors. The digitalization of heritage is governed basically from UNESCO Charter that was published first in 2003 and was updated in 2009. Those record results. There's European Capital of Smart Tourism initiatives recently, smart destinations of United Nations World Tourism Organizations, and good practice from our projects, and also a recent Horizon project coordination support action being carried. Starting with the Charter of UNESCO, this actually was the first time that it was recognized internationally that digital heritage is something that needs to be activated and encouraged, which consists of unique resources of human knowledge and expression. It embraces cultural, education, scientific, and administrative resources, as well as technical, legal, medical, and other kinds of information created digitally or converted into digital from existing analog resources. When resources are born digital, there is no other form but a digital object. Digital materials include text, databases, moving images, audio, software, web pages, and so forth. Many of these resources have lasting value and significance and heritage that should be protected and preserved. The Charter actually proposes measures that should be taken to use.
Sorry, Manos, the sound is very bad. Do you have the sound on your second computer as well? We have some sort of echo.
Sorry, no, I don't think there's anything. There's part of the UNESCO Charter. There's also a publication by Cordis on the research results of digital heritage, digital technologies in heritage, with examples of achievements in terms of building 3D models and bringing European history to life with big data. But more closer to our interest is the smart tourism initiatives that started.
Manos, could you please try to once turn off the sound and turn it on again? We really do have an echo and some beeping in the. I'm sorry for this. Just mute yourself and turn it on again. Now you're muted. Now unmute and try again, please.
Doesn't make any difference.
No.
Sorry.
Then try please to speak slowly. So.
I was saying that our particular interest is the smart tourism initiatives that started a few years ago, 3 years ago. And now in the European Union, in addition to cultural capital, we have a smart tourism capital award with 4 components: sustainability, accessibility, digitalization, and cultural heritage and creativity. So as we see, 2 of the 4 components are directly related to what we're talking about today. WTO, United Nations World Tourism Organization, also has an initiative of smart destinations, defined as one with a strategy for technology, innovation, sustainability, accessibility, and inclusivity along the entire tourism cycle, before, during, and after the trip. That is the information given to the visitor before the trip, during the trip, but also information digital form after the trip. In our 3 projects in Interreg Europe, we have several good practices, which are actually in the database, from Bulgaria, from Latvia, from Romania. I would like to highlight 2 of them that are at European level. The European for Tourism Policy Recommendations were published some years ago, and the European Heritage Label initiative of European Commission, which is an award for sustainable destinations that have a European value. It's different from UNESCO World Heritage Site and the cultural roots of the country of Europe. It has to have a European value. There are several applications, including our members in Cyprus on the Aphrodite myth, for example, and virtual reality achievements. In this particular one is from Olympia in Greece. Coming to our last project, which is a Horizon 2020 project, started last year. The aim is to reinherit, is the name. The aim is to create a digital hub whereby resources and tools will be available on training, tourism, conservation, preservation, knowledge creation, reuse, necessary for sustainable management of heritage. And this will be an ecosystem that will allow for interaction between actors, researchers, destinations, heritage professionals, museums, and heritage sites. The aim is to improve the cooperation between museums and heritage sites using digital means. Ectn offers our substantial network of further project results, dissemination, exploitation, communication activities, particularly in relation to cultural heritage tourism. And there will be a smart app produced, and we are producing the policy guidelines on its implementation. And one development that has taken place this year, very recent, is the publication of the Transition Pathway for Tourism by the European Commission. And this has several highly relevant references on virtual and augmented reality, digitalization of heritage assets for innovative tourism service using advanced technologies, including artificial intelligence and digitized cultural heritage. This is to develop and implement smart and sustainable tourism strategies at all levels. So this is all for me. Sorry if the sound wasn't very good, but I suppose the message is clear that digital facilities have a lot to play in preserving heritage for the future, but also for the visitor, enhancing the visitor experience at tourist destinations and make it that way more smart applications. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Manos. We are really sorry for this sound problem and we apologize. But as Manos said, maybe you have been getting at least a message. We will, of course, share this presentation to read, and we will try to work with Manos a little bit during the other presentations so that maybe the sound gets a little bit better. The good practices, we have shared some links for you, which you can find in the chat to also follow up. So I was going to ask you, Manos, and maybe you try in the meantime, turn off your sound and turn on again. I was going to ask you, this sounds like a massive task. If I listen to it, to try to have all the or like the majority of sites to be digitalized in Europe, how do you think this can be managed? Is there a specific approach that should be recommended for that?
Well, if you mean resources, there are plenty of resources available in all the funds, European funds, regional operational programs, including the new recovery and resilience plans, all have a lot of funds available for digital transition, for the digital transition, and it's really for up to our sector, the cultural sector, the tourism sector, to apply for such funds and claim such funds and produce the kind of results that are interesting for the visitor. But there is incentives exist, and it's just up to the bodies that deal with this particular aspects to claim these funds.
Exactly. It is also an incentive since we had the COVID-19 pandemic to digitalize a lot and make it accessible for people, despite the fact they couldn't go and visit a museum, for example. So a very important aspect. We have one question from the audience for you, Manos. It's thank you for the interesting presentation. My question is, how can an organization join Ectn? You will have access in the chat, and I think this is something you can discuss bilaterally, please. So I would also like to ask our panelists, do you have any thoughts in terms of what Manos has presented? So the European scale of the task which is lying ahead. Maybe I can ask Catherine if you have any thoughts on any questions for Manos. You are still muted.
Maybe I'm not plugged in. Is that better?
Yes, and a little bit louder, please.
Okay, a little bit louder. Thank you, Manos. Thank you, Astrid, for that. I found that really interesting. I particularly liked when you said that digital can't replace actual visits, because that's what we're all about. I'm quite glad I'm going next in the speeches, because we may find ourselves repeating each other a little. But I wondered whether you had any advice or tips for smaller organizations of sort of cheap and easy ways to replicate that, before, during, and after digital engagement. So what platforms were used, and is there anything that we could share?
Various ways to do this, and again, with unlimited choice. People do. There are available solutions for these applications. You can download. The destinations can really produce an app, a smart app for practically.
I'm afraid the quality is so bad that we can vaguely hear you. I think we will try to have the first presentation, and maybe I can ask Lotte to see if we can resolve the problem in some way or another. I'm very sorry about this, but we can not understand what you're saying. So maybe yes. So maybe you could try to resolve this. I don't know if you have a headset somewhere next to you, that would be also helpful. So I'm trying to go now to the good practices and policy changes, and maybe we can pick up with you again a little bit later. So Catherine, I will ask you to go ahead and present us what you have been doing. You have been creating an online curiosity cabinet and digitized historic collections. So that sounds very interesting. And I would like to ask you to present that, and also keep the microphone very close to your mouth, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much for having me. My name's Catherine Leonard, and I run a network called the International National Trusts Organisation. But in this context, I'm the project manager for the National Trust on the Inner Castle project. Now, I was at a conference last week where everybody started their remarks by saying, I'm not a heritage expert, and I'm going to say that I'm not a digitization expert. So I'm very grateful to the colleagues who have shared their stories with me to pass on to you today. Our lovely friends at the Policy Learning platform asked me to talk about the challenges to digitizing heritage, some of the practices we highlighted in the Inner Castle project, including the digitization of the National Trusts collection, and a relevant policy change. So there's quite a lot to get through, so I better get started. In terms of challenges, digitization can be expensive and require a lot of manpower. It doesn't have to, but it can. The technology is constantly evolving, and your platform, that's what I was asking about platforms, may become outdated. So that's another concern. The amount of potential digital content is so vast, it can be overwhelming. That question of just where do you start? And things like tech and apps do cost money, so there can be pressure to monetize those at the other end. And then lastly, and this is the point that Manos made, we can't get away from the fact that whilst digital content is great and a really crucial tool in the conservation, study and promotion of our heritage, what we at National Trusts do is primarily about people and place and bringing those together. So digital tools are a great way to entice, excite, entertain and invite. But for us, at least, they don't replace the actual visitor experience. I heard recently a story about a tourist who was visiting Shakespeare's birthplace here in Stratford-upon-Avon, and they'd taken off their shoes and socks just to stand on the very flagstones that William Shakespeare had walked upon, and that's very powerful. So here are some of the practices we identified in our project. The Chronicare Digitali is a project launched by the National Institute of Heritage, our Romanian partners, that engaged young people in visual storytelling about heritage through the development of heritage routes, to which they invited Instagrammers, bloggers and journalists with the aim of engaging and people and spreading the word. And in 5 months, they reached 1 million young people. The Luoghi del Cuore is an initiative of FAI, the Italian National Trust, that every year invites people to nominate a special place, a cherished place, perhaps an endangered place, a forgotten place, which goes onto a website, and then people vote for the winner, and the winner receives funding to undertake vital restoration work. And it's just a really good way of engaging people and giving them a role in the preservation of these sites. The St. Helena National Trust in the South Atlantic used a combination of digital and actual methods to crowdsource its new online historic environment record. And we featured that in a webinar on digital engagement as part of our project. And then lastly is an example of digital interpretation at an archaeological site, somewhere where, you know, too many information boards would really have detracted from the visitor experience, and it's not somewhere where you can have a lot of guides. So the National Trust made 10 short films linked to QR codes. So very simple and effective way of augmenting the visitor experience. This is what I'm really meant to be talking about, the digitization of historic collections. So this project started many years ago, but the platform was actually developed in 2009, which I admit is also quite a long time ago now, in partnership with the Royal Collection here in the UK. And then hundreds of people, staff, volunteers, contractors, pulled together all the data and images onto this new system, which was launched in 2011 and is still growing and still very popular today, with over 1 million items on the website. And that's a link there. There are many benefits to digitizing heritage in this way. When Clarendon Park, picture there, house in Surrey, burned down in a National Trust house, burned down in 2015, some of its contents were rescued in a very well-rehearsed salvage plan, but many were lost or damaged forever beyond repair, and only now exist through their digital record. And the picture at the bottom is a little jade box. So that's great to have that in our records. Digitalization, as we heard, it really increases access. It increases access to people doing research, but also public engagement, which of course we saw, especially during the pandemic, with an explosion of virtual visits, online content, multi-channel digital content that, as Manos was saying, that inspires and informs and enables actual visiting. I was astonished to hear recently that a London tube station, an underground station in London that has been long closed, King William Street Tube, ran a digital visit that 26,000 people signed up to undertake and paid £18 a head to do, which, if you're good at maths, is a lot of money. So it is possible to monetize digital products. The National Trust has another website called National Trust Images, where you can download for free pictures of National Trust properties, collections, etc., but that you would pay for the higher quality imagery. So that's another example. In terms of policy change, the province of Badajoz, another of our partners in Inner Castle, has committed as part of the project to proactively provide schools and municipalities with digital tools to enable citizens to create digital content, which can be used on an e-platform to promote cultural heritage tourism. I had hoped to have a little bit more to tell you about that, but it's still in process, so it's not quite a best practice yet, but it's happening, and it was an action coming out, a policy change action. So that's all from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Catherine, for your very nice presentation. And as we said before, if you have questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat. I have a little question to you. You started already saying that. How does this become economically feasible? Is that you said, okay, there is some smart ways of doing this, like, for example, high quality images, or for example, people sign up for virtual visits and these kind of things. But, you know, do you have to have also a plan for how to finance everything before you start?
Yeah, so these things are expensive. The kind of custom-built apps. I mean, others will have better knowledge of this, I'm sure. But and another thing that the National Trust has done recently is it was a very clever low-cost project using Twitter, that platform, and it is possible to do things simply and effectively. And also going to where people are. So if people are already on social media, kind of investing your effort there can be a cheap and effective way of doing it. But I'm sure others have better suggestions, Astrid.
But you also have had some very nice examples from yourself, from other places where people have been sort of crowd contributing to different applications. So that seems to be a very interesting means to do that kind of things. Yeah, maybe I can ask. Maybe I can ask Dennis or Manos. Do you have any questions to Catherine on their developments? No. Sorry. We have one question here where excuse the lack of knowledge, is that starts like that and is saying, what is the reference to both digitization and digitalization? What is the difference? Any of you has a smart answer to this? For me, this is a little bit the same, but I'm sure there is a difference. I don't know, Manos, do you have any ideas on that? We can also test if your sound is a little bit better now.
Well, I believe that the digitalization is more dynamic. It's delivering digital technologies, where digitization is just the process. The digitalization is more result oriented. Practically, we use the same, Horizon 2020 uses digitization everywhere. In tourism, they use digitalization, but I think the meaning is practically the same. Now we have preferred digitalization because it's more dynamic in delivery.
Very good. Thank you very much. So don't hesitate if you have more questions. And Manos, since we are hearing you so beautifully now, I'm going to come back again and ask you my question from before, because I think you said some very interesting things about how people are going to make this massive change to digitize or digitalize this cultural heritage. So maybe you can speak again about the incentives and that you mentioned before.
Well, what we find every day is that in all the new funds from 21-27, the new period, all the funds, including the resilience and recovery plans, they have very adequate resources budgeted for digitalization in all its forms. In cultural heritage, it's up to the museums, the cultural sites, the destination authorities, the regional authorities, the local authorities to apply for such funds and take advantage of this opportunity and have a better service for their visitors. But there are funds available, there are incentives. The market wants this. The visitors want this. They're asking for this. It's not as like a few years ago where it was like a luxury. Now it becomes a day-to-day necessity.
Thank you. Thank you very much for pointing this out. It is a day-to-day necessity. Otherwise, people are not finding their way around.
If I may add, it also addresses the young generation. You know, the young generation visitors, the visitors of tomorrow. They want digital information in all its better forms, and they're really the next generation. Therefore, it's very cost effective to invest in such facilities for destinations and local authorities, regional authorities, and museums and heritage sites to provide this information for the new generation.
Thank you. Thank you very much for pointing this out. I think it's very interesting what you have been explaining. We also have a good contribution here from Elisabeth from the Azores. They say that they have a public policy called participative budget, and through this instrument, local people present their ideas, and some of them are digitalization proposals. So another very good idea to realize your digitalization projects through these participative budgets. So some sort of crowdfunding as well here going on. So thank you very much. I think with this we can go now to Greece. I would like to ask Agathoniki to speak to us about the Byzantine Museum of Culture and how you have been managing your process of digitalization.
Hello from Greece. Thank you very much for inviting me to this panel discussion, to this webinar. I have a question to all participants. If they ever have visited the Museum of Byzantine Culture in Greece. And I want to have an answer. And we are a state museum. The next, please. The next slide, please. The Museum of Byzantine Culture is a state museum. We are not an independent service, and we can not do much things. We have the money that we have from the tickets from our museum shop are transported to the state. That is very important. Next slide, please. We have, as museum, participated to the Krista project, and I have to say that the use of new technologies is an important step towards the modernization of Greek state museums and the Museum of Byzantine Culture itself, and generally the technology of multimedia, digital media, internet offers to the educational process and the museum experience a new quality in dialogic communication, upgrading the access to all users, and that it's very important, and especially the disabled. Our museum uses digital applications, modern information and communication technologies that offers visitors education. It's also very important, combined with entertainment, both in our permanent exhibition and in our temporary exhibitions. Next, please. During pandemic, our museum focused on maintaining its contact with the public by inventing various online actions aiming to educate and entertain through interaction, children and adults, students and teachers, but also families too. The activities were organized online on own funds and means of our museum, and were offered free of charge, and that is also very important, free of charge for the public. The next, please. You all can see examples from our digital exhibitions and videos with several themes inspired from our collections and the exhibits in the permanent exhibition. The next, please. All are still on our website, and other examples from educational activities. Next, please. Of course, added value, all this initiative that I have said before during the pandemic, and of course, all these have a restorative power for humans, and all this engage humans, visitors, to all the actions of the museum, and connect people with all the employees inside the museum, and made us to feel much better and to create and to offer things to people. Next, please. Some words about our best practice and an application with the title Amusing Museum. This was an educational application for Android platforms, an interactive tour in the permanent exhibition, and that it's very important to engage people, to engage young people, was designed in the framework of the International Museum Day by the Anaptixis development team, a group of graduated students for free. There was an opportunity to discover the Byzantine world in a new way through quizzes, puzzles, and mini games. Next, please. This was, I think, an inspiring example for similar projects because developed a simple and easy way to use app, prompted museum visitors to seek and learn about the exhibits interactively, tested visitors' knowledge and observation, has the ability to upload scores and compete against other visitors, the ability to have statistics on the learning outputs, and of course, sharing experiences at museum through or via social media. Next, please. As an epilogue, the use of technology is not a panacea, it's an ancient word, nor does it replace the experience of a lively visit to the museum. That is why we're currently running two co-financed European projects, Digital Museum of Byzantine Culture from Vision to Experience, actions to enhance interaction and the experience of visiting the Museum of Byzantine Culture, and second, learning about the Byzantine seals from the bulles to the IPS. In this way, the experience of the visitor through the contact with the authentic exhibit is enriched through modern actions and interactively with the use of technology. The first program will be completed by the end of this year, when the second during 2024. And the next, please. You can see some of the applications, video guides for hearing impaired visitors, AR app, audio guide app in 11 languages, a new website with 14 educational games, etc. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nikki, for this presentation of your work. We have one first question, which is, what is IP standing for? You had this abbreviation in one of the last slides. So maybe you could tell us that.
Yes, it's a new technology to nowadays. I'm not an expert, of course. For administration and to give the sign as the Byzantine bulla in to be official something, and to give more the sign, to be signed.
Okay, something you can sign is like a certificate?
Yes, or to, yes, a modern way, digitalized way.
Okay, so we still have the mystery of what IP stands for. So maybe we can somehow look it up, or you can look it up during the next presentation. I have one question for you. Is it intellectual property? Somebody is asking. That's usually IPR, intellectual property rights. I don't know. Maybe you can look it up, Nikki, during the next presentation. But my first question to you is, you said it would be very important to have the offer free of charge. Why? Why is that very important?
Because we are a state museum, and we have to give to the people a way to connect, to know, to be informed about their culture, and of course our common culture, because Byzantine culture is the basis of the European civilization, as you know. And it's very important for us as a state museum to give all this, to offer all this free of charge. And not only this action, our digital actions, but also all our actions in the museum, also the visit, somebody can visit our temporary exhibitions for free, and all our actions about art and culture, educational programs are offering for free to the people and to the students.
I think that is excellent what you're saying. Maybe it's an excellent offer to have access to culture. And then the next question is, I'm just firing away while other people are also thinking about their questions. The next question is like, what is the most favorite of people? Do they like, what do they like? The competition and the games, or the videos, or what is the most used, may I say, app now that people are, what are using people most?
Yes, I think that people generally like very much the engagement, to participate, and of course to be I don't like the word education with a bad meaning, but to be informed and to give also their opinion to all that happens inside the museum. If a theme is very close to the reality, and is more interesting and connected to the reality that somebody in which somebody lives nowadays, it's more interesting, and generally makes the visitor to be engaged more and more.
Very good. So maybe, Manos, do you have any questions on this digitalization of the Museum of Byzantine Culture to Nikki?
Astrid, there's also one question from the audience.
Yes, I've seen it. Thank you.
Good.
I suggest to all participants to visit our website and to see our actions. And maybe after that, maybe they can, I will be very happy to receive more questions.
Very good. Manos, do you have any questions to
I'm fortunate because I have actually visited the museum several times, and we worked with Ms. Michaliková and Krista project. So I'm part of this as well. So there's nothing to add.
And what has impressed you most about their work on digitalization?
Yes, there were two museums in Thessaloniki, the archaeological and the Byzantine culture, and they both developed this kind of approaches within the Krista project, shared these good practices with other partners that are actually involved in the workshops we had in several places, I believe in Cyprus, in Latvia, and this cross-fertilization worked very well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. The question was actually, which we received from Ignacio Radacotera. He would like to ask how was the development of the visitors app financed, and if this was part of the Krista Interreg Europe project.
I'm not sure if I understood the question.
How was the visitors app financed? And was it financed by the Krista project?
The visitors.
The visitors app, yeah, the app.
The visitors app. The last slide was about our project that will be ended in this year, and this co-financed. It's an European project. The application Amusing Museum was for free, was designed by the team of students for free. And this is very, very important because we're a state museum, and we all our actions are made by ourselves and by through the engagement of people, of visitors, digital visitors, or visitors or students who admire the museum and the work it was done during all years. And all these, all our actions are very well presented through our website. And this gives us the opportunity to connect and to cooperate with people who we don't know. Yes,
that was very good. I mean, you reach out to a larger audience, and I think it's also an excellent idea to work, for example, with students that are busy in digitalization or creative industries. So it's another source of bringing your apps and your digitalization off the ground. I think Catherine has a question.
Oh, thank you. I really liked your presentation. I thought it was fascinating, and I loved the amusing museum. I might have to steal that idea. It's a really good name. Thank you. And the whole sort of gamification piece was really interesting. But what I was particularly wanting to ask about was, I think a lot of us have felt that after the pandemic, we don't want to just throw open our doors to the same old people who used to visit us before. And you'd said in your presentation that the digital stuff had really helped, or you were hoping that it would help bring more disabled access. And I just wondered whether there were other communities, whether you had data on how successful that had been in engaging people that perhaps hadn't been so likely to visit before.
We want to reach this goal because all this application will be completed and during next years, and because of that I cannot answer in this moment. After all this, maybe we have results, but as I have said, we prefer, because we exhibit, we present to the people authentic archaeological objects from Byzantine period and post-Byzantine period, of course. The important thing is to visit and see the exhibit, the artwork, the product of the Byzantine civilization, and not through a digitized product or through an application. This is important for us.
Sure, yes, and for us,
all
for us
this
too. Sorry.
Is for impaired people, from disabled, not because of a pandemic, of another reason, but only if they are disabled, if they are blind, if they are for deaf people. That is what I mean when I say disabled.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just very interested in how technology can help make people feel more welcome in your museum or your historic house or your site generally. And I think it sounds really great. Yeah. Because you that's the visiting is the important bit. Yes, exactly. Thank you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much also for this exchange. I think it's very interesting that you know, if what you have been doing has also had the impact that you are looking for. So have you been reaching out to new groups? Have you been attracting more young people? Different user groups, like more disabled people, have now felt the access, but obviously you don't have the data yet. But this is something really to follow up and also to monitor. I guess that's something that should be built in your applications, in your offers, that you can monitor if you achieve the desired results. Well, thank you very much for the moment. So Nikki, for your presentation.
Thank you.
And then I think we go a little bit up north again to the Netherlands. We give the word to Dennis Dekker. So you also have some very nice approaches, this time for a cycling route called 1629. And we are really very much looking forward to listening to you. And I would ask everybody who's not speaking to mute themselves, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Dennis Dekker, and I work for the Heritage Department of the municipality of Stad And for this project, we go back to the year 1629. During this year, the siege of Stad took place. In 1629, the 80-year war between the Dutch Republic and the Spanish Empire was in full swing. Stad was a Catholic city under Spanish control. But after a siege of almost 5 months, Prince Frederick Hendrik managed to take the city for the Dutch Republic. The city of Stad wants to bring this event to the attention to the public, together with the neighboring municipalities and partners, for the residents, but also for visitors to the region. One of the initiatives to make the siege visible and perceptible is the Line 1629 cycle tour. This was presented 3 years ago. So the tour of almost 50 kilometers is following the old defense lines, and it takes you to the important places of the siege of Stad. We placed 17 large information boards along the route. And in addition, people can also bring a printed cycling guide to get extra information about different locations. It really is a beautiful tour along various landscapes, but there's one problem. The traces of the 1629 defense line are only recognizable by a few people, if there's anything visible at all. You really have to know what to look at, and many people will accidentally cycle past all those different locations without knowing what happened there during the siege. And we wanted to change that. To make the historic cycling tour even more fun, attractive, and educational for a wider audience, we wanted to present an innovative tour app. The app makes it possible to experience the history of the siege at various historical places on site, on a smartphone in a way that is not possible via the traditional media. Imagine that you are cycling right here on this lane, and your smartphone gives you a signal, and you pick up your phone, point it in the air, and suddenly you see the fortifications in the current environment again. But we wanted to go a step further than just visualizing the construction works. History is made by people. We therefore also wanted to tell the personal side of the story. And we had found a special source for this, the original newspapers from 1629. The special thing is that we have the newspapers from the side of the Dutch Republic, but also from the Spanish side. These newspapers are full of eyewitness accounts of the war journalists of the time. But we have to take into account something important. In war, truth is the first victim. Media and communication were used to influence the population. Often, the battle looks strangely modern, with a lot of examples of propaganda and fake news. So here we had an interesting source to tell a story. The newspapers are telling the story from two different perspectives, that of the Dutch Republic and of the Spanish side. From a Dutch perspective, we were engaged in a war of independence, but the Spaniards were on a mission. They had to save the world, defend the Catholic faith. How did we present these two perspectives via the app? Well, here they are. Meet Jan van Hilten on the right and Abraham Verhoeven on the left. These two war journalists who really lived tell the story from their own perspective. Jan van Hilten was a publisher of the Dutch newspaper in Amsterdam, and Abraham Verhoeven was a publisher of the Spanish-minded newspaper in Antwerp. But what exactly does the app look like? I'll give you a little tour. Here you see the map with the route. The yellow line shows the cycle route. And the green line shows the historical line of defense. You get a notification when you are at a point of interest. Then you can choose to have the guides appear in augmented reality, but you can also choose to just listen to them or read their messages. In this case, we choose to see the guides by augmented reality. So here you are right on site, and then you place them just right there. And then you see the guides who are in a dialogue with each other. And the nice thing is that you can actually walk around the guides, or you can move closer to them. And the dialogues of these guides are based on real text from their newspapers. And because of this, their experiences and reports are not always the same. Sometimes they also argue with each other, where one talks about thousands of enemy victims during an attack. The other says it were just a few hundred, for example. And if you go to the next slide, the app actually contains two layers: the playful dialogues with the guides, but also a deeper layer with images, facts, and original newspaper reports. Here's a photo after the line became visible again because of dry weather. And these are some little facts that you can see right here. And these are some examples of original text from the newspapers. And if you go to the next slide, we also made the buildings visible via virtual reality. So here you see a reconstruction of a fort. And through this 360-degree panorama, you can move freely and compare the historical situation with the present. So you can look around. And besides this, we also present a bird's eye view from this location as well. So you can see it from above. So we can go to the next slide.
You can share your presentation again, Dennis.
Yes.
Thanks.
And it is even possible to take a picture with the guides as a fun memory to share them with your friends. And since last year, we are also working more closely together with local entrepreneurs. Various restaurants and terraces along the tour are also visible in the app. So visitors and residents enjoy the beautiful nature and impressive cultural history in our region, but can also enjoy good food, good local food and drinks. The app is now available for 2 years. It has now been downloaded about 7,000 times. And as expected, we mainly see an increase from spring and into summer. And the reactions are positive, and it's a nice experience and a good addition to the line 1629 cycle route. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Dennis, for your inspiring presentation as well. We already getting a lot of very nice feedback, as you can see in the chat. I guess these people also have some questions to you, but maybe I can start. Is that only available in Dutch, or is it also available in other languages?
Yeah, good question. At this moment, it's only in Dutch, unfortunately. Yeah, maybe for our next development, we want to bring it also in English, but at this moment, it's only in Dutch. Yeah.
Thank you very much. And I will very much like to put you in contact with the colleagues from Antwerp, with whom we had a peer review on reviving the fortress city, which have as a next step after the ongoing work on uncovering some of the fortresses, also a digitalization project. I think they will love what you're doing, if they're not already here as well. So, and then one final question for me, maybe, do you have already new products that have come up? I don't know, the line 1629 beer or something like that. Have these things happened?
Like you mean the local food and such. Yes, there is a special beer which is made by a local brewer around here. So, and there's also a special sandwich with real Spanish ingredients. So.
It sounds very nice. That inspires more creativity. Excellent. So we have a question from Josephine Kroneberg, which is from Magdeburg. So greetings from the city of Magdeburg. One question, and from Recapture the Fortress Cities project here. So one question to Dennis: how well is the app being used by the people already? And is it well appreciated? And are there any techniques that you're using to promote it? And maybe I can add a question: how much did it cost?
Well, the app now exists for almost 2 years, and it has been downloaded for 7,000 times. So we are actually glad with this number. And at first we thought the more younger people would use this app, but we also see the more elderly people who are using the app. I think it's we really see this as this app as an addition to also the other products we have. So I also see that some people are really interested in the app, but there are also a lot of people who are just glad with the paper with the paper. So it's I guess it's the combination. And beforehand we thought that the more younger people would use the app, and the more elderly people would use the paper map, but that is not already always the case. We also see see it around. For the techniques to promote it, we are using, we made a trailer, so a video trailer we are sharing online. We are advertising in touristic magazines. Also the restaurants and the local entrepreneurs are helping to promote the app, because they are in the app themselves. So yeah, we used more. We're really promoting the app, and the costs. The development of the app is possible because there was a funding program here in the Netherlands to stimulate for bringing the creative industry together with the heritage organizations. We did a proposal, and we won it. So and the app, the cost were almost 50,000 euros.
Thank you very much. We had this question again, how was it financed? Any particular EU program? I think you already answered. It was a Dutch program that helped to do that. We have a question from Tini Manhout from Middelburg, if I'm not completely wrong. How do you keep the entrepreneurs enthusiastic and ambassadors of your product?
The app itself is free, and also the entrepreneurs don't have to pay to be in the app. Yeah, the only thing we ask them is to help also promote the tour and the app. And well, we just come in contact with them, and we explain everything, and the route and the history, and we tell them that their restaurant is at a very special place, and then we try to make them enthusiastic, and then they really see the chances to use that place and to attract visitors. So they it's a win-win situation, I guess.
Very good. We have another question. The initiator in 1, 2, 3. The initiator and manager of the project was the city.
Yes, the city together with the neighboring cities. And we worked,
everybody who was involved in the line 1629,
yes.
you did this together.
Yes, and there is a special volunteer group, and we also we also worked with them to point the points of interest and to make the story. And there was also one important volunteer, and that was the person who went to the archives to find all the newspapers.
Very important work. Thank you for pointing this out. Again, some volunteers and some, crowdsourcing of information, very important. Excellent. We have one remark from Elisabeth, who says, in my experience, there are the digital clients and the paper clients. These two will always exist, and the solutions to promote cultural heritage should have both components. I think she confirms what what you have just been presenting. So thank you very much. Lots of very enthusiastic feedback on your presentation as well. And I would really love to come and use it. Sounds really beautiful. And I have already been in the Museum of Byzantine Culture as well. So, so just missing also the National Trust. Yeah, well, with this, I would like to thank you all for your presentations. Do we have more questions to our presenters? I would like to do a little round to all the four of you. And I have two questions which I would like to ask you to answer, so that is maybe helpful also for the different local authorities, regional authorities that are here. So the first question would be like, where did you start? How did this come about? So when you have this massive amount of data possibilities, heritage sites, where is the best point to start? And what would you recommend to any of the aspiring digitalization projects? What would you recommend to them to avoid? What should they not do, so that maybe some of the pitfalls they can avoid? I don't know, maybe we can start with Catherine, if you agree.
Thank you. Just, I was just scribbling. I hope I'm the right place to start. I'm ashamed and feeling very inadequate that I don't know the answer to the question what the difference between digitization and digitalization is as a native speaker. So anyway, so thank you. So where did we start? So with the National Trust, I mean, the National Trust has been in operation since 1895. So as you can imagine, there's a lot to digitize. And I think the need was identified as having to sort out the records and just getting everything, and the opportunity. Like I said, it's been a project that's been ongoing for 20 or so years. So it may, the decision may have been lost in the midst of time as to how it actually started, but the opportunity, the need, and just a feeling that it was the way to go and what to get on with. I think for recommendations, I'm probably thinking about some of the other projects I talked about, and what we've heard today is I think we need to go where people are with our digital products. So creating some kind of new, complicated, newfangled, awkward way to access digitization doesn't feel the best sort of use of anyone's time and money. So we found that if you can have something that is easy for people to use and is somewhere where they already are, like their smartphone, that's a really good tip. And just, yeah, making it easy for people. And I think we've heard that. And I loved Dennis's app. I really did. And I think we could probably learn a little from that. Also thinking about the one I briefly mentioned, the archaeological site digitization, which was a much simpler product, but it would be good to be ambitious and look at the app possibilities. So yes, sorry, that's my rather rambling thoughts on that. Be good to hear what others think.
Thank you very much for your thoughts. No, it's important to know, and also make it easy for people to use. Don't make it too complicated. Don't make it too high tech either, so that people cannot manage it anymore. So it's important remark as well. With that, I would like to go to Manos, and Manos is also on where to start, what you would recommend, also what you would recommend not to do. And we have a extra question which we have received beforehand, which was about the virtual reconstruction of cultural heritage, as some of them don't have a physical presence anymore. And I saw you showing Olympia, so maybe you could also say some words about that virtual reconstruction aspect.
Yes, certainly. There are so many technologies and solutions available that practically, you need a guide to do this. I would like to mention a resource that I mentioned briefly, the Europeana. I don't know if people are familiar with Europeana. Europeana is a foundation based in the Netherlands, I believe, in Hague. They're funded through the Connecting Europe facility, not through regional funds. And they doing exactly this. They digitize all the European heritage, and they have collections available. And there is also a European network and conferences and workshops, and people can learn actually for free techniques on digitalization of heritage. That's their main area of work, and therefore this is a resource that can be exploited. It's funded by the European Union, therefore it's available to all European Union citizens. Yes, there's the European website. It's the basic European site, and there's the Pro. In terms of tourism, they actually have done some work on tourism. They have recommendations and guidelines on how tourist destinations can capitalize on using new technologies, digital technologies for heritage. To answer your question, where the reconstruction? Well, reconstruction is something very exciting because in the old days, in the 30s, the site of Knossos in Crete, that was Adams, I believe it was Evans, actually rebuilt some of the structures, which now would not be allowed on archaeological scientific basis, will not be allowed anymore. But you can do this on digital and much better, cheaper, and there's unlimited field of action that destinations and heritage sites can do, and this creates more interest to the visitor. And this issue of paper or digital, of course, still some people, even like me, my generation, use paper facilities. However, you can not do on paper what you can do in digital. And therefore, increasingly so, as I said, the young generation now is looking only for digital facilities to learn and to exploit and to relive the actual history behind the heritage sites. And there's unlimited possibilities there, what you can do. And the costs are not very high. I've seen some budgets, I think Dennis mentioned 50,000. I've seen even less than that. And people can achieve, for modest amounts, can achieve great results.
Thank you very much. I think you're saying something very true. There is a possibility to do things with relatively modest amounts as well, tapping into the local resources. So thank you very much also for sharing the Europeana. We have put the link as well, so you can look into this. Yeah, maybe Agathoniki, maybe you could also say what you think where one could start with some huge collection like you have, and what should you absolutely not do?
I have to say that we in the museum since 1994 have been involved, we can say, in digitalization, because we offer to the people inside the museum via computers and through digital media to be informed about the history of the museums in the permanent exhibition in room number 11 with the title Discovering the Past. Since then, we have also designed and offered other not applications, videos, and other
the digital projects.
touch screens and no projects inside the temporary exhibitions. But since 2014 till 16, we've been involved in the project enrichment of the digital collections of the Ministry of Culture and Sports through documentation and digitalization of our collections. And the last two co-financed projects I've already presented. I think that the most important things are to somebody has to look at the organization, the museum has to look for good partners to be engaged to a program generally between cultural organizations, museums, universities, research centers, or the private sector to cooperate, and of course to have employees who know very well about the administration of such a project, or to create the envelope. I think all these are important, and not so much the money, the access to the money.
It's not the financing, it's the people again. Somebody has pointed this out before. So you need good partners and a lot of knowledge, and then you can very well establish a project. So the last word goes to Dennis. So thank you very much, Nikki, for you as well. The last word goes to you, Dennis. And then we have also had one additional question from before, which is the kind of network, or what do you need, what volunteers you need to maintain a digital route information platform. So what are you doing to maintain all of this up to date, or are you just not updating it at all? That is also an option. So
well, in this case, we made the story together with a lot of volunteers. So we pointed the 17 points of interest, and we had some volunteers who went to the archives and get the newspapers. So that was I would say a co-creation process. But after that, for us, it's like a fixed story for now. So we presented the app, and that's the story, and we didn't make it as it isn't intended to actually update it on a regular basis with new stories. In our case, in this case, so we are now more focusing on promoting the route and the app, and also working together with entrepreneurs, but also maybe with local schools for educational programs. So it's yeah, more like that.
Thank you. Thank you very much also for your words on that. I think which underlines some of the points that we have heard from all four of you. So if I may try to wrap up, I would say, okay, you've all said technology is important. It's important to reach out also to new audiences, to allow access to the heritage sites, but it does not replace the experience. So it's very important that both also this analog experience is still existing, and that you have an offer which goes for the app, but also for some of the paper people or for the people that like to use a mix, that this is all there. I think Dennis said something important. History is based on people, and also these apps, they are living through the people that are helping to build them, that volunteer to get the data or the information or to maintain it in the future. It was also said it's not really the financing that's the most important, it's the people that is the most important behind such a project. You need volunteers, you need good partners, as Nikki was saying. So find the right people to work with in a very long-term process. So where to start is somewhere, and then just try to keep going for a long time. I think that's what I've heard, at least from you. And then, you need these partners for the creation, for the promotion to go on. So thank you very much for sharing this experience with us. It was very interesting. We apologize again for some of the technical issues that we have had, but we will share with you the recording, we will share with you the presentations, all the links, so that you can get as much access to information. If you have remaining questions, you can send them to us. We will address the questions that were in the chat on the IP, which is actually Internet Protocol, as we have found out in the meantime. Somebody was asking for funding sources. We will come back in writing. And somebody was asking on how to get membership in Ectn. We will put you in contact so that you can talk with each other. Yeah, I would say a big thank you to our speakers and to the team. Thank you very much for your work, for the preparation, for this interesting webinar. If you're interested in hearing more about cultural routes and itineraries, please register if you haven't done so yet. Next week, we have some exciting speakers about cultural routes and itineraries and how they have been revived. Excellent examples from Portugal, Italy, and the Czech Republic are waiting for you. So that's on the 25th of October. On the 3rd of November, we are talking about how to inspire policy change for water-related heritage. And we are going to look to Breda in the Netherlands, Aarhus in Denmark, and Alicante in Spain, and how their policy actions have inspired Ravenna and Istragranum in Hungary to improve new policy actions or implement new policy actions. Excuse me. So please don't be strangers. If you want to use our services at the Policy Learning Platform, we're here for you. You can contact us also for peer reviews and matchmakings if interested on digitalization. And please be so kind to fill out the survey, give us some feedback. And with this, thank you and goodbye, and see you soon again on the next webinars. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.